To promote Hong Kong's reputation for regulatory excellence, which has contributed significantly to its long-standing role as an international financial center, the implementation of regulatory changes is imperative. At the 14th Biennial Corporate Governance Conference 2024, regulators talk about their ongoing and future initiatives to embrace changes, whilst ensuring businesses continue to conduct their activities in responsible ways. The keynote speaker, Ms. Julia Leung Fung Yee, Chief Executive Officer of the Securities and Futures Commission of Hong Kong, will address the role of regulations in a dynamic world.
It's my pleasure to speak to you about corporate governance today, and thank you for your kind invitation. I once heard that corporate governance is like a good cup of coffee, which is essential to a productive day of work. I look forward to sharing more with you today, including proposed initiatives to help our listed companies strengthen corporate governance, protect shareholders' interests, and stay globally competitive. First of all, I believe you would all agree when I say corporate world today is challenging in many ways. Topics of macro and market volatility and geopolitical tensions have dominated news headlines, and in the meantime, advances in technology, including AI, and the emergence of sustainability issues have also impacted businesses significantly. Companies need to adapt to these changes and find ways to harness them to future-proof their operations. And from talent retention to creating a diverse and inclusive workplace, the list of challenges simply goes on and on. Therefore, building corporate resilience is critical for companies to survive, if not succeed, in today's dynamic, competitive, and uncertain business environment. While staying focused on financial performance, companies must develop acute awareness, foresight, and agility to anticipate and tackle emerging challenges and seize fresh opportunities when they come their way. According to the Asian Corporate Governance Association's CG Watch 2023, Hong Kong's corporate governance ranking has slipped from the top 3 in the past 20 years to the 6th place. If international ranking on corporate governance serves as a guide, it's time for Hong Kong to step up its act to maintain the competitiveness of our listed companies. In today's tight monetary environment, investors are demanding more from businesses. They overwhelmingly demand honesty and integrity in addition to decent investment return. Boards of directors are expected to take their fiduciary duties seriously. Companies must also have robust internal controls to safeguard their business and assets. International developments in corporate governance have been significant in the last couple of years. For example, the UK has further required directors to report on the board's decisions and their outcomes against the company's strategy and objectives, and on the internal control environment. Mainland China, Japan, and South Korea have also introduced initiatives to improve listed companies' capital efficiency and encouraging them to disclose how they enhance corporate value and investment returns. Here in Hong Kong, as you know, the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong has closed its consultation on proposed enhancements to the Corporate Governance Code, or the CG Code in short. Preliminary feedback is that certain proposals may shake up some deep-seated practices in our market. In these challenging times, we understand it's only natural for companies to find ways to cut back and streamline, but they must be careful not to cut corners on the core corporate governance standards. Now, let me share with you some insights we have gathered from corporate misconduct cases. Sound internal controls are integral to good corporate governance. Lax internal controls and directors' failure in their duties are common features in corporate misconduct cases. From 2020 to June 2024, around 170 cases of misconduct were referred to the SFC for investigation. They cover wide-ranging issues, including unauthorized loans or fund transfers to third parties and misappropriation of companies' assets. A lot of these cases relate to suspicious loans transactions, which were subsequently impaired, resulting in multi-billion-dollar losses to shareholders. These misconduct cases follow a typical pattern. The loans were sometimes authorized by the chairman or a director, but not approved by the board. Many were granted with insufficient risk or credit assessment, loan collaterals, or due diligence. Also, the company failed to properly monitor the repayment of the loan or act promptly to recover it. Despite these control deficiencies, the directors often confirmed in the corporate annual report that the company implemented effective risk management and internal control systems. The SFC intervened in many of these cases. For example, we recently exercised our statutory power to suspend dealings in Tianyuan International Holding Limited's shares over missing corporate funds. Regulatory and legal actions are taken to punish bad actors and compensate investors, but these actions normally take years. To mitigate harm to investors, we should do more on buttressing corporate internal controls to detect and preempt corporate misconduct. To tackle this problem of internal control deficiency, the SFC and the IFRS, and Kelvin will be speaking soon also, we have joined forces. In July 2023, the two regulators issued a joint statement to alert the market to these dubious transactions. We also set out our expectations on directors, audit committees, and auditors. Our message is crystal clear. Investors in the public rely on the company's financial disclosures for a true picture of their financial condition. The board of a listed company should be held accountable for safeguarding the integrity of a company's financial disclosures. They should also be responsible for overseeing robust internal controls to detect and prevent corporate misconduct. At present, the CG Code recommends that the Board of Directors provide a confirmation on the effectiveness of risk management and internal control systems in the corporate governance report. In the vast majority of cases we have reviewed, the directors confirmed that their internal control systems were sound, but in fact deficiencies were still prevalent. Only a handful admitted their internal controls were inadequate. To strengthen the board's accountability, the exchange has recently proposed to mandate the board to disclose its review of the effectiveness of the company's risk management and internal control systems. I now turn to the issue of the quality of directors. Good corporate governance relies on a strong and competent board of directors with expertise, integrity, and foresight to steer the company through economic ups and downs. Therefore, directors must act honestly and in good faith for the benefits of the company and shareholders. It's also their obligation to act diligently to advance the company's business and generate an acceptable return for shareholders. The principle is widely accepted as the minimum standard for directors, but in some cases, very young, very inexperienced family members or acquaintances were appointed as directors. This raises serious red flags on the quality and interests of the directors. Well-managed companies are expected to establish a formal process to identify, select, and appoint director candidates with appropriate skills, qualifications, and experience. To safeguard director standards, the exchange has proposed to require all directors to attend mandatory continuous professional training and first-time directors to go through a minimum period of induction training. Just like all other professionals, corporate directors must stay relevant by updating their knowledge and skills. Let's move on from directors to independent non-executive directors, or INEDs in short. This is the subject of lively debate recently. The exchange has proposed a hard cap of 9 years for the tenure of INEDs. We note that there are views representing listed companies, such as those of Hong Kong CGI. They believe an INED should be considered independent based on the independence of mind, rather than the number of years served. There are certainly long-serving INEDs who remain highly independent. On the other hand, Groups representing investors said the proposal hasn't gone far enough. In their opinion, a board of long-serving INETs might suffer from entrenchment or groupthink. In addition, a prolonged period of service may also compromise INET's independence through these close associations with the management. While there is no hard and fast rule to determine the ideal tenure, we believe implementing a hard cap of 9 years aligns better with international best practice. In this region, Singapore and Malaysia introduced tenure limits of 9 and 12 years for independent directors in January 23 and January 22, respectively. Mainland China has set a tenure limit of 6 years. In addition, corporate governance codes in the UK and Australia recognize, respectively, that board service of more than 9 or 10 years could impact a director's independence. While there's no hard cap on the tenure of INETs in US and UK, they both have other safeguards in place. For instance, at least half of the board is required to comprise INETs, whereas Hong Kong requires only a third, and a minimum of 3 INETs on the board. In its supplementary submission, Hong Kong CGI proposed to address the concerns raised here through additional guidance, market education, and allowing time for proposal implementation. We're now carefully considering these issues. Here, we come to the overboarding issue. A decade has passed since the exchange last proposed to limit the number of INET positions that one person may hold. The proposal was eventually not adopted back then. This was largely based on comments that a hard cap may unfairly impact many directors and punish those competent and diligent INETs who can devote sufficient time to multiple companies. In fact, the exchange's recent proposal to cap the Hong Kong listed issuers' directorship at 6 for an INET will only affect 23 directors. This reflects the broad recognition that an INET should have sufficient capacity to handle board affairs in an increasingly complex environment. Other major markets have recognized this and implemented measures to tackle the issue of overboarding directors. To maintain our world-class regulation and ensure high-quality decision-making on the boards of our listed company, Hong Kong should make no exception. Here I come to my last point about diversity, a topic that is close to my heart. We all know diversity is fast becoming an important driver of board effectiveness. The board diversity requirements for listed companies were introduced on a comply or explain basis in September 2013. We have come a long way since then. In 2012, the proportion of women holding directorships on the boards of Hong Kong listed companies was just above 10%. Since then, women's participation has improved significantly, advancing to 15% in 21 and further increased to 19% this year, after the requirement to phase out single-gender boards was introduced 2 years ago. In terms of gender diversity on corporate boards, Hong Kong's performance is comparable to other Asian markets, such as China, Japan, and Singapore, but still lags far behind US, UK, and Australia. In this round of consultation, the exchange has proposed further enhancement on diversity for boards and workforce. Fostering diversity is a corporate priority that underpins good governance. It is an imperative to promote more balanced and inclusive decision-making. This will certainly lead to better business outcomes in an increasingly complex and unpredictable business landscape. Listed companies should lead by example and serve as an agent of change to embrace diversity and inclusion at all levels of management. So, ladies and gentlemen, to close my speech today, let me share an anecdote with you. The other day, a very senior executive of a major financial conglomerate from Japan visited and shared with me their journey of corporate governance reform over the past few years. Years back, the group went down this reform path to meet the higher standard imposed by the Tokyo Stock Exchange. It was painful, as he said, for the board and management, but the reform has finally now paid off. Indeed, many argue Japan's governance reform, along with other macro factors, has contributed to the strength of the Japanese stock market, even though liquidity has been generally tight for global markets in general. Locally, we have surely heard voices that this is not the best time for corporate governance reform when companies struggle to survive. However, one should always have time for good corporate governance, particularly in challenging times. So it's time for all of us to move forward and brew this uplifting cup of coffee together to avoid a strong dose of medicine that would need due to more procrastination that gives rise to governance issue. So thank you very much.
Regulations come in all shapes and sizes. It's all about protecting the public interest. Bearing this principle in mind, Dr. Kelvin Wong, chairman of the Accounting and Financial Reporting Council, will then highlight the emerging international regulatory concerns that Hong Kong needs to pay attention to.
I have a few high-level observations regarding what's going on regarding the global challenges facing not only regulators, but also companies and also the financial intermediaries. When you add all the challenges up together, I would say it is quite an avalanche of challenge that is not easy to resolve. Now, firstly, I want to share with you some high-level observations at the AFRC regarding the emerging challenges. Firstly, it is the aging population and the CGen. So what does that mean? So that means for financial regulators, we have to ensure, what do you mean by protecting the public interest? What does that mean by public? If you look at the age, we have increasingly more baby boomer retiring, and some of them actually retired already. So therefore, their risk appetite bounds to be a lot more conservative comparing to the Gen Z population, of which, of course, they embrace technology, innovative instruments, including, for example, the crypto assets, you name it. So therefore, as a regulator, how to regulate various industries and companies in order to ensure they deliver performance as expected by the public. That is a challenge. The second being economic growth. Of course, when we are talking about economic growth, especially after the COVID, we are talking about economic deterioration. So therefore, that's another challenge facing not only listed company, but also the government. And increasingly, we are seeing political competitions among economic blocs and also major nations that has tarnished the clarity and the visibility among listed companies in looking into how should they invest in the next 5 and 10 years, because they simply lack that clarity because of the economic and political tension. Of course, as far as government is concerned, they have to maintain at least a balanced budget, if not a surplus one. But then maintaining a fiscal balance is extremely difficult nowadays. Therefore, government, they will consider, for one thing, market development. It has right now become the fashion, not only for Hong Kong. When you look at UK, FRC, actually they have been adopting a lot more market-oriented approach in regulating the profession. They call it to embrace the market, to enhance competition and promote competition. That is, of course, necessary. But then don't forget, that is against the background of a systematic fiscal imbalances faced by major nations and economy. That is the background. However, it is precisely listed companies that you have to deliver the performance in order to nurture and promote long-term economic development. Then what is the role of regulator? At the AFRC, since 2022, we have been charged with an expanded responsibility to promote and nurture the long-term healthy development of the accounting profession. Of course, that's easier said than done. We regulate the profession in order to make sure our regulation is not too loose, it is not too tight. It has to be an optimal level in which we call it good governance or good regulations, which will induce and enhance the regulated market to learn and then to enhance their internal governance culture. Now, among the accounting profession, in particular the audit firms in Hong Kong, on average, they are quite okay. But of course, occasionally we will be seeing some substantial events in which audit firms, they may have some audit failure. That is not typical in Hong Kong, but that has catch the eyes of the public. Artificial intelligence, of course, when I refer to the accounting profession in Hong Kong, barring those relatively large international network firms in Hong Kong, on average, small to medium-sized practitioners in Hong Kong, they are not ready yet regarding adopting technology, AI, you name it. The root cause of it is not because they don't understand it. The root cause of it is not they don't have that skill set. The root cause is because they don't want to reinvest what they have earned. They have put their reserves and plow back to their pocket. They don't want to take it out because they are not seeing good opportunities for them to be able to compete on an equal footing with the big firms. Now that is the difficulty, and I believe when we look into the brokerage industry in Hong Kong, they are facing similar issue, i.e. among the small to medium-sized local brokerage houses, their bosses, they don't want to reinvest in their firm. So therefore, there is only one way out for those companies. Eventually, they will be out of the market because of competition. Talent development, of course. Talent development is a pretty nice and also a positive connotation, but it is actually the lack of it right now we're talking about. We are not seeing enough talent among the accounting profession. We are not seeing university graduates. They are willing to become an auditor. That has been a problem. But then the reason why there is such a change among university graduates, now it is a difficult but then very important question that Hong Kong ICPA, together with AFRC, we have to deal with it. Environmental concern, I will leave it to the very able speaker, Teresa. But then, of course, this is a concern. But then for Hong Kong, it is also an opportunity because we are seeing sooner rather than later, Hong Kong will be adopting the global standards regarding sustainability reporting. Hong Kong ICPA will be the standard setters for the standards, whereas AFRC will be the regulator, regulating the report, similar to the financial reporting. So therefore, that should create a lot of opportunities for the accounting profession to become a specialist and then to provide another type of assurance service to users. Last but not least, cross-border exposure has been both an opportunities and also threats for regulators in Hong Kong, given the fact that for the time being, over 85% of the market capitalizations are companies based in the mainland, either the state-owned or the private-owned. So you can imagine Hong Kong relies heavily on companies in the mainland. They have their culture. Their culture is not distinctly different from that in Hong Kong, but then they have their unique culture. And when you, for example, John, you were there. John was formerly the head of enforcement at the exchange. We had some private discussions regarding enforcement. John actually shook his head, saying that you cannot find them because they are all in the mainland. Whenever they want to launch the investigation, all the directors, let alone the INEDs, they're in the mainland. What can you do as a regulator? So that is a challenge for Hong Kong, especially for regulators, in how to ensure we can protect public interest and how we can proceed regarding our investigation and enforcement for the better good of the Hong Kong as an IFC. That's a challenge. So therefore, I believe that we need a reboot. Whenever you have any problem with your smartphone, you will reboot it. Similarly, when you have any problem, when your PC is hanged, you need to reboot it. I believe that we need to consider, similar to the title of today, reviewed, revisit, and then to reset. We have to reboot governance, because governance, in terms of principle, we all embrace them. But then in reality, they don't work. Why? I believe that now it is kind of a cliche for us to say governance, we have to migrate it from conformance to performance. I vividly remember when I was the chair of the Hong Kong Institute of Directors. That was back to almost 2 decades ago. We were talking about the senior leadership among the council. We were talking about how to promote and advocate performance rather than conformance. Conformance is good, but then conformance bound to be aiming at delivering performance. And then regarding the performance of Hong Kong listed companies, performance of audit firms, I would say there are a lot that we may want to question. Now, if I may just ask you a question. You know, the horizontal, the x-axis is governance. From left to right, it is bad to good, okay? The vertical axis, from bad performance to good performance. We have 2 stocks or 2 companies in front of you. One is actually good governance, but then bad performance. The other one, in the complete contrast, bad governance, but then good performance. Which one will you choose from the bottom of your heart? Of course, 2 weeks ago, there was an announcement by the Ministry of Finance. I'm not trying to take that as an example. Whenever there is any financial fiasco, any company failure, a very natural question is, where were the auditor? Why they are not able to caution the public interest and the shareholders? Why? I would say yes, but then increasingly the question itself is almost meaningless. It's just like chewing wax. There is no additional meaning for you. Where were the auditors? They were there, they published the account. So what does that mean? I equally challenge, where were they? Chairman, CEO, CFO, audit committee members, audit committee chair, did you talk to your auditor regarding any concerns or red flag? According to the listing rules, listed company audit committee, they have to have a separate meeting with the incumbent auditor. Did they do that? And if they did that, what was the agenda? I believe that there is a big gap for us to fill between what are the public expectations onto company directors and audit committee and what they have been doing so far. INEDs, I couldn't agree with Julia more regarding their role, internal auditor, company secretaries, you name it. But then banks, brokers, and investors in Hong Kong, they tend to be very, very silent. In Chinese, I call them 宅男. Actually, they're stuck in their camp because they want to make sure that they can hit and run regarding their performance. I've talked to some very senior and experienced fund manager, and they told me this. I challenged them, in case you dislike the company's governance and some of their strategies, they are not able to deliver value. Why didn't you challenge them at the AGM? Turn yourself to become a shareholders activist. They said, no, we would rather dump the shares before the AGM. It is what it is. We are not able to benefit from shareholders activists who in aggregate put the positive and constructive pressure onto companies, letting them to become accountable. It is not happening in Hong Kong. In AGM, we all understand what does that mean. AGM is actually a party for shareholders to come and then to pick up some of the souvenir and then they will go. For the accounting profession, especially for auditor and also listed company, you have to think about what is the value of financial statement, annual report, and also audit report. Increasingly, sophisticated investors, they don't spend too much time on reading the annual report because it is stale information. Therefore, we are seeing, for example, qualified and also semi-qualified CFAs in Hong Kong, and also on a global basis, outnumber qualified CPAs a lot. What does that mean? Because demand supply. There are a lot of demand regarding the skill sets in financial forecast and you name it. Now, audit opinion. At the AFRC, we believe that this is actually an unacceptable malpractice in Hong Kong. We are seeing now, in Hong Kong, we have about 2,500 listed companies. Nearly 5% of listed companies' audit opinion are disclaimed opinion. What does that mean by disclaimed opinion? Barring the opening cash, barring the access, barring the impairment assessment, we have no other negative opinion on the company's account. So that's what it is. If I may tell you this is a woman, trust me. Do you trust me? You trust me because of my disclaimed opinion? 4%, close to 5% of companies' account, listed companies' account in Hong Kong, are disclaimed opinion. That is outrageous. And I can tell you that for one single PIE audit firm in particular, 20% of the engagements are the disclaimed opinion. At the AFRC, we will uncrack the myth and the malpractice together with other regulators, hopefully with SFC and also exchanges, in order to make sure that auditors, they will discharge the responsibility rather than just to put up disclaimed opinion, which are increasingly the case for suspended trading accounts. We have grave concern. You have two locks, one being the upper one and then the lower one. Which one will you buy? Certainly, if you want to buy a lock, you will buy the secured one. You have to pay a premium. If you buy a broken one, you can pay a discount. It is the case that not only audit fee, but also INED's fee are miserable. They are not commensurate with their risk and then the work they have done. Choice and opinion. In Hong Kong, we are seeing some malpractices as well. Now, when you are going to have some sort of a health check, of course, you would go for a good one, a good laboratory, rather than a bad one. So therefore, money is not what you are looking for. You are looking for an independent, robust report. For audit, it's a different story. International firms, they can only enjoy a perpetual discount audit fee. And then for the small to medium-sized practitioners, they can provide a deep discount because they are providing a substandard service. So therefore, even though it is not massive in Hong Kong, but then we are seeing the trend of racing to the bottom. Bad audit drives up good audit with a lower audit fee. This is a phenomena that is unacceptable for Hong Kong if we want to embrace sustainability report. Don't forget, if we are not getting to the bottom of it, then the malpractice will replicate itself, no matter we're talking about AI generative, no matter we're talking about sustainability reporting. We are seeing overtrading among listed companies. We are seeing overboarding among listed companies, both INED, and we are also seeing at the AFRC over-engagement by some audit firms in which they don't have enough resources and also partners, but then yet they are taking on a lot more engagement. Therefore, performance bounds to be suffered. What's the solution? Going forward, local financial regulators, we must work hands on hand together in order to make sure that public interests are protected, not on a sequential manner. We have to work together so that we can deal with listed companies' issues, their auditors' issue at the same time in order to protect public interest. I always like to share my final remark to my friends and audience, even though if you have heard about it, please bear with me. Life is like a piano. How well is it depends on how you play it. It is not the piano which may cost you 10 millions. You can play a better music. No. After all, it is the content. Thank you.
Nowadays, there is growing sentiment suggesting that ESG is on the brink of decline. In the next talk, Ms. Teresa Ko, Vice Chair of the IFRS Foundation, will guide us through an examination of investor expectations, assess companies' resilience to change, and then chart a new paradigm that goes beyond ESG.
First of all, I want to thank our previous two speakers for all their very candid sharing. It's very important for us to hear directly from two of the most powerful regulators in Hong Kong, so thank you. And you're all still looking supremely well, and that I call resilience. Seriously, thinking of speaking after two regulators, how can I, present my topic? And by the way, this is my topic. So I thought something a bit more gentler. Now, looking at the topic, I'm sure many will be forgiven for thinking that, oh, it's about ESG again. I have news for you. The answer is no. It's not one no, but two no's and three no's. No, no, no. It's not about ESG. ESG is as best on a life support machine, or pretty dead. If you look at the capital which has exited from ESG funds in the last 6 months, I'm told at least 13 billion. In fact, there is an opinions piece in the FT. It came out yesterday, and by the way, I didn't plant it. The title is, as you can read, ESG is dead, long live ESG. Dead? Yes. I would not be surprised if Appendix C2 of the listing rules, which is where we now have all the requirements on E, S, and G, will be gone in a few years' time and replaced with one sentence, like the one on the other side, but in relation to sustainability disclosure standard. So why is ESG dead? So many reasons. Wars, COVID is finished, too much hype, oil prices gone up, inflation, greenwashing, politics, the list goes on. There is, in fact, a little video from the FT called "Who Killed the ESG Party?" It is actually excellent if you want to know why they think the ESG party is over. But let me get back to my topic. We are actually in a better place as we are charting a new paradigm beyond ESG. Hong Kong is well placed to take advantage of this opening if we can all change our mindset and take real, individual as well as collective actions. There is a new word for it. The new word is sustainability. There is also another word which goes with sustainability. Only 4 letters, and they are 4 letters you can pronounce. Yes, ISSB, which stands for International Sustainability Standards Board. ISSB is on a mission to create a global baseline of sustainability-related financial disclosure so that there can be a global comparability and global consistency between sustainability-related disclosures by public listed companies around the world. Let me show you the real people who work full-time as board members of ISSB. Now, we were very focused on expertise, on experience, geographical and gender balance in selecting and appointing them. Many have given up high-profile and high-paying jobs to join the ISSB. So where is this ISSB? Now, I'm actually quite astonished and continue to be astonished that many even seasoned accountants don't know that there is an organization called the IFRS Foundation. So allow me to repeat this again. An ISSB is an independent board that sits under the IFRS Foundation. And the IFRS Foundation is a not-for-profit, public interest global organization headquartered in the UK that was established 20 years ago to converge local accounting standards so that we now have IFRS financial reporting standards. And because of the work of the IFRS Foundation, everyone now knows what the word revenue means around the world if the company use IFRS accounting standards. And the IFRS Foundation has done a good job as over 144 jurisdictions, including Hong Kong, mandate the use of IFRS standards. The outlier, as we all know, is the US, and they use US GAAP. IFRS Foundation has a 3-tier structure. The heavy lifting, the standard setting, the production of accounting or sustainability standards are done by 2 independent boards, the IASB and ISSB at the bottom. In the middle are the trustees, and there are 22 of them, and I'm one of them. And they are responsible for the strategy, for the governance, for the funding, and for the oversight of the foundation. The trustees themselves, including me, are monitored by a monitoring board comprising very senior representatives from public authorities like the SEC, the FSA, and all the kind of regulators around the world. Now, here's our few slides to cover the very short but glittering history of ISSB. It was established at COP26 in November 2021, following strong demand from the market and with the support of G20, G7, IOSCO, Financial Stability Board, and many policy makers and governments. A huge amount has been done because we were asked by the stakeholders globally to sort out the mess with sustainability disclosure standards. I was thinking a word to describe the chaotic, the confusing, the duplicative, the resource-consuming situation, and I came up with the word porridge. Supposed to be good for you, but not many want to eat it, and often we have to be forced to eat it, especially when we were young. Greenwashing was also rife and serious and rampant. So leading sustainability standard setter also joined hands with us, and the IFRS Foundation was blessed to have achieved many consolidation, as you can see from this slide. ISSB also expanded its footprint to have a multi-location presence. And last summer, we opened our IFRS Foundation office in Beijing. I was very happy to take this photo. I should mention that the IFRS Foundation from day one is investors focused. Our standards serve investors to allow them to make informed allocation and other economic decisions. So the focus of ISSB is the same. ISSB, it is their business to find out what investors really want through the very vigorous public consultation process, their outreach, their engagements, and many advisories, forums, working groups, and a lot of listening that they do to a broad spectrum of investors and many other stakeholders. IASB, on the accounting side, has now 19 standards. I think the last and current one is IAS 19, and some of you who do insurance will know how long the insurance standard, IAS 17, took, over 10 years. And IFRS Foundation is around for 23 years, and ISSB published already 2 standards, and they were published last June. S1 on general requirements, which is a mirror image to IAS 1, and S2, which is the climate-related disclosure requirements. And we've always said climate first, but not climate only. So what do S1 and S2 ask of companies? Now, S1 asked a company to disclose information about its sustainability-related risks and opportunities that is useful to investors to allow them to make investment decisions. Again, it's not any risks or opportunities, it is material risks and opportunities that can reasonably be expected to affect a company's cash flow, is access to finance or cost of capital over the short, medium, or long term, or information that could affect a company's prospects. And S2 asks for disclosure of climate-related risks and opportunities, and for the first time requires, hopefully on a global basis, scope 1, 2, as well as 3, amongst many other things. Now, ISSB is only a standard setter, and standards are standards. They are not law, they are not regulation. So the ISSB, together with the IFRS Foundation, have been really making huge efforts to facilitate adoption by jurisdictions and territories of S1 and S2 through their own legislative or regulatory mechanism. In Hong Kong, we already saw the Hong Kong Stock Exchange made interim steps to bring in the new climate requirements as part of the Hong Kong listing rules starting from 1st of January next year. And Hong Kong's sustainability standards setter, Hong Kong ICPA, is currently consulting on exposure drafts for Hong Kong's sustainability standard, HKFRS 1 and HKFRS S2. And I'm pleased to say that they are proposed to be fully converged with IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. Now, this slide just shows you the due process that has been undertaken to produce S1 and S2, over 1,400 comments letters, 400 outreach, and staff papers and public meetings. So you can be rest assured that ISSB standards do reflect market demand. So you may be asking, Teresa, your topic is investors, what do they want? So I have also a slide for you. This is the global adoption, and I think I should add that the jurisdictions on this slide together account for 55% of global GDP, more than 40% of global market capitalization, and half of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. So it is, as I try to describe it, a global movement. Now, so what do investors want? This is from PwC Global Investor Survey, published last November, so it's pretty up to date. They consulted over 300 investors and analysts across geographies, asset class, and investment approaches. The words in these boxes are very much music to my ear, so I would like to share with you a couple of reflections. The first is that ESG is not a marketing tool. I was quite shocked when I saw this from the survey. I know that my dispute teams are ready for real action in Asia. And so come and talk to us if you're worried. I know that they want me to say this. But I do mean it sincerely, because each of you should really, for your company's sake, look at your website and all the marketing document. Claims can all become potential legal liability. And you can't hide behind the words ESG. Now, second, let me get into some action. And this slide shows actions requested from investors to address issues most important to them. Taking the one in the middle, investors want companies to embed sustainability to drive value. Going forward, focus on sustainability is not just a business, but a strategic imperative. Let me focus on climate. Climate is a financial risk, from a simple thing like a flooding of a basement in a shopping mall, so you have to stop business, for a couple of days, if not longer, to being too hot outside in parts of India, parts of Pakistan, parts of the world, whereby workers can't work the same hours anymore. Scientists have been telling us that if we do not control global warming below 1.5 degrees centigrade to pre-industrial levels, and we do not have long for this, freak weather will become more intense and happen more frequently. Take Typhoon Yagi. Hong Kong was lucky. Typhoon 8 was only up for 18 hours, 10 minutes, with very little damage. But the aftermath is still causing chaos in parts of Asia. It's not just rain and flooding, but extreme heat, and we can all feel it in Hong Kong. Investors are concerned with climate change. Now, I've spoken to lots of institutional investors, and they're not interested in awards and accolades, though they have their place as well. But my point is, what they are really interested and want to see is material information that they can use to assess the company's resilience towards change, and not just climate. And if you look in the box, they want to know how companies are managing emerging technologies like AI. At a very practical level, what they really want to see is how companies progress in terms of their transitional plan, in terms of their plan to take on some of the sustainability challenges that they face, whether they are achievements or failure, and they want to see how that progress tracks from one year to another and from year to year. Now, S1 does give you flexibility and makes it very clear that you can include that information anywhere you like in the company's management commentary in MD&A, operating and financial review, integrated report, strategic report, or if you are bold enough, you can even start putting them in the footnotes in the accountant's report. Now, my next point is that you need trust to be built into your disclosure. And building this trust is not something that can be left to just the head of sustainability or the head of legal, or push it just to the accountants, or you just say, we've just hired another consultant to deal with it. But crafting your disclosure has to be a collective effort, and the buck stops with the board or the directors, executive as well as non-executive. So, and I think Fidelity actually has been telling me that time and time again, that if you do not want to write it yourself, or get somebody like a lawyer to write it for you, then especially on how you tackle, the climate transition and the progress from year to year, they will fill in the gaps for you by guessing. So the choice is yours. You either write it or leave it to them, who don't really know about your company except what you print and what you speak at conferences. They will do the guessing. I think my last point is that there is a huge amount of money to be made with this climate transition. $9 trillion is required every year to limit temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2050, and 275 trillion of investment in physical assets is required in total, I'm told, according to reliable statistics. Now, each company needs to decide what their strategy is, going for the short term or going for the long term, or trying to manage growth and do both. I have to say, this is a very exciting moment for all of us in the world, because we are having to think about how financial reporting standards, which are always backward-looking, will evolve going forward, because sustainability is forward-looking, and how corporate reporting will look like in the future. Now, in the meantime, 2 research projects have already been started by ISSB, another 4 letters, BEES, B-E-E-S, which stands for Biodiversity, Ecosystem, and Ecosystem Services, and Human Capital. Another topic very dear to my heart, because the rise of artificial intelligence and humanoid robotics and people are, and I hope for a very long time to come, is still the most valuable asset for companies. To close, I leave you with my favorite definition of sustainability. It came from 1713. Whatever your view is on ESG, our world has moved to a precarious moment in terms of climate change. This is not about you or me, but about our children and their children, or even pets. And our standing, our competitiveness, and our relevance of Hong Kong as an international financial center. We have to create our own story for our future. I want to salute to all those corporates which have the foresight, the leadership, and the commitment to support the work of the IFRS Foundation, especially those corporates which are listed in Hong Kong. I hope you can spot them, and may it continue. Thank you very much.